Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul, joined alongside Robert Ziggy Ziegler, who is up at Harvard University. That's really going to take some time for me to get used to, Ziggy. That's stumbling a little bit, trying to remember where exactly you're from now. It's not. Hey, we said UVA for 3 years. That's a long time. Just to kind of flip the switch. As everyone knows, it's a Friday afternoon. We normally record for Tuesday and Thursday episodes, but we always say in sports media a lot of the times, whenever you're least expecting news, it always seems to come up. And whenever you're like ready for, it's Friday afternoon, Ziggy and I again ready to go have our Friday plans, that's when something breaks. And Ziggy gave a call, said, "Did you see what Micah Parsons tweeted out?" It's like, I haven't yet. I go over to my phone, and as of now, it's about an hour ago. Micah Parsons, I'm not going to read the whole thing, essentially puts the Dallas Cowboys on blast. We know that there was the trade request earlier in the day, and those are all the reports that were circulating. But Micah says, the team I grew up for, I don't want to be a part of anymore. Unfortunately, I no longer want to be here. I no longer want to be held to closed doors negotiations without my agent present. No longer want shots taken at me for getting injured while laying it on the line for the organization, our fans, and my teammates. I no longer want narratives created and spread to the media about me. He ends this 3-page notes app rant where he says, "I no longer want to play for the Dallas Cowboys. My trade request has been submitted to Stephen Jones personally." And I mean, we see a lot of these reports come out. Terry McLaurin just requested a trade. We've seen it with T. Higgins. But not often do you see a blatant, shot over at the owner like Jerry Jones here, as far as the negotiation process went. And it's turned very ugly between Micah and the Cowboys. But Ziggy, upon initial reaction, because me and you disagree on what the future holds for Micah now, producer Zach said every team in the league should be super excited and be reaching out. And I don't necessarily disagree with him there, but your initial reaction to Micah putting out this message and asking for a trade?
I think this is legit. As you say, sometimes players have their agents contact Adam Schefter or a media outlet and be like, "Hey, put out that I want to trade," just to get the negotiations moving. I cannot remember the last time we had a player come out and basically say, "F you to the owner, F you to the GM, F you to the organization. I'm not coming back. You guys tricked me and I'm done." Right? This isn't just a negotiating tactic. If it is, I think this is a pretty bad negotiating tactic. Jerry Jones is a guy who takes everything personally. This is somebody saying, "I'm tired of you talking about me to the media," coming out saying, "Oh, we probably won't get Micah Parsons for half the season because he's injured all the time." This is somebody who feels like he was tricked in contract negotiations. And it's tough to get trust from a player like that back, especially when you're Jerry Jones and are really the face of the whole Cowboys organization, sometimes for better, usually for worse. We don't see things like this. And ultimately, if Micah Parsons feels strongly enough to come out and say that he was cheated, he feels tricked, he feels like they were trying to pressure him into a contract, when in his own words, he'd stayed quiet trying to get something done. His agent had never made a request for money or for more years or anything like that. He feels like he was being fair and the Cowboys were trying to screw him. How do you come back from that?
Obviously, there are two sides to every coin here, and Micah seems to, as you said, feel betrayed by this. But the answer to me, Ziggy, as it is with most situations here, it's money. I believe that if I were the Dallas Cowboys, they're just going to look at this and say, okay, like they don't like it. Obviously, Jerry Jones, I'm sure, is not a fan of the tweet going out. But Jerry Jones also wants to win desperately. You hear every time you hear him talk, yes, he's very egocentric, but a lot of the messaging that Jerry Jones usually gives is, "I just want to win." And how old is he now? He's mid-80s at this point, Jerry. There's not a lot of time left for winning. Having Micah Parsons on your team is the faster route to a Super Bowl for the Cowboys, who, haven't been to an NFC Championship game in 30 years. I think they're just going to look at this and say, "You know what? He's so damn good. We're going to give him the biggest deal ever." And Micah Parsons then may find it in him to forgive Dallas for these actions. You don't think that's the case, though?
Well, I think about you're probably thinking this is going to go like the Myles Garrett thing, where Myles Garrett says, "I want a trade request." The Cleveland Browns back up the Brinks truck and he comes back like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
What makes this different, if you read Myles Garrett's trade request statement, He says, my love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this an incredibly tough decision. These 8 years have shaped me into the man I am today. I love calling this city my home. My goal is to win a Super Bowl, though, so I request a trade. You're not calling out the owners. And you could easily say, these owners suck. They never spend money. They're not willing to pay me what I'm worth. I'm not sticking around. But that's actually what Micah Parsons did. He came out and said, I'm tired of Jerry Jones. He came out and said, I don't want to be a part of this organization anymore, right? Rather than one sentence requesting a trade, like we're not reading this whole statement. Paul asked, maybe we should. It's 3 pages long about all the ways the Cowboys have screwed him. Well, again, what you say, there's 2 sides of every story. Whether or not it's true is immaterial. I cannot see Jerry Jones letting this go because the whole tenor of his public comments has been the organization's more important than Micah Parsons. He gets hurt. We'll be fine without him. We're going to try and find a deal that works.
I think you could talk a lot.
If they were willing to pay him, whatever it took to get it done, they already would have. Micah Parsons' only request is he wants a 3 or a 4-year deal instead of a 5.
I don't know. They
should be willing to sign that yesterday.
That was the situation with Dak. If they were willing to pay, they paid him $60 million. They could have got that done earlier. I think they're just bad at this.
When did the Dak Prescott tweet coming out saying I was tricked by Jerry Jones?
But when you look at Micah Parsons we're talking about a 2-time first team All-Pro, second team All-Pro, and last year he would have been there if he didn't get hurt. I mean, last year Micah had 12 sacks and he only played in 13 games. He was on track for, one of the best seasons of his career. And I just can't see a world where if you're Jerry Jones, you really put yourself over, you are putting yourself over the team, which he does a lot. But this feels like one of them where I actually think Micah Parsons has the upper hand because he's possibly the best player in football. He could arguably be the very best player overall in the league. And
but when it's personal, you don't come back from that. Think about Trent Williams, right? Trent Williams made clear that he was done with the Commanders organization after the cancer diagnosis debacle. After that, it didn't matter that Trent Williams was the best left tackle in the NFL. It didn't matter that he was one of the greatest Washington Commanders ever. It didn't matter that after he was traded, he made 3 straight first-team All-Pros. When a player's done, they're done. And this really reads to me like a statement where Micah Parsons is saying, I'm done. I've done my part. And when the trust is lost at every level, trust in the GM, trust in the ownership, trust in the organization.
but it won't matter if you give him $40 million.
They already offered him that, and he
42,
said no.
43. If there's a number there
I don't think so. This is personal. If this wasn't personal, you wouldn't do this. You can request a trade to try and get what you want without putting out a tweet saying, I hate the owner, he's a scumbag.
But you just don't see guys like all of these situations we talk about with T. Higgins, with Brandon Ayuk, with Myles Garrett, with Trey Hendrickson so far. You name it. Almost every situation when you have a star in their prime saying, I want to be traded, it usually gets resolved.
When does it not get resolved? When it's personal and when the owner says we're not doing it. And maybe you know a different Jerry Jones than me. The Jerry Jones that I've seen is egotistical, thinks he's smarter than anyone else, and takes things very, very personally.
But I don't think in many ways, Jerry Jones. No, I'm not even going to go there. Jerry Jones is not dumb enough to realize how important Micah Parsons is and how good he is. Yes, he's egotistical, and he might be more egotistical than any owner. Whatever that argument is, you can make that. But he knows they need Micah. And I think he values winning maybe more than the ego. I really think he I know he's full of himself, but I think he'd just be shocking to me if they traded Micah. You really think they're going to trade Micah Parsons?
I think that Jerry Jones hates being publicly humiliated. And I think at this point now, both sides probably want him gone.
Yeah, I would be shocked.
That's incredible.
Utterly shocked if he moves.
But Micah Parsons, this is, if you want it out, if you're Micah Parsons and you meant it, he knows this organization, the people in it well enough to know this is your best chance. If you really want to go scorched earth, if you publicly humiliate Jerry Jones, this is what you do.
But
this
he also didn't say,
you want to come back and want an extra $1 million on your contract.
But he also didn't say, F Jerry Jones or like Jerry Jones is a liar. I know he used stories that did not paint the Cowboys very well. But I don't think it was like he went off. He went scorched earth, but he didn't go to the fullest extent where he's like, I will never want to work with Jerry Jones because he's a liar and I don't trust him. Like, I get that he took a shot and he absolutely did. But to me, it seems salvageable. I really think that with money, it's salvageable there. Well, I mean, we'll see though. So let's talk about that a little more so we don't go in circles too much. If he were to get traded, and that's where every fan base in the NFL, if you hear the name Micah Parsons is on the trade block, your ears should go up because we're talking about a guy who's generational talent. On Nick Wright's show yesterday, Ziggy, we went through players who would automatically be in the Hall of Fame today if they ended their careers. And Micah's not there yet, but everyone acknowledged, okay, yeah, like in a couple more years, Micah Parsons will be a Hall of Famer. Like if he ends his career after 6-7 seasons. Yeah,
Micah Parsons is probably coming off the worst season of his career.
Because he was hurt.
13 games, he put up 12 sacks and 12 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles. That's probably the worst season of his entire career. So the worst season of his entire career is borderline first team All-Pro.
No, he's unbelievable. Whenever you mention the best pass rushers in the game and the impact that they have, Micah's right there, if not at the top. And I actually think he's been a little underrated lately, given the way people talk about Watt and Garrett. Micah Parsons is a beast, so you should have your attention there. We're going to name a couple teams here, and Ziggy's, he started cracking codes here, trying to figure out potential trade candidates for Micah. So let's just jump right into it, okay? We're going to give 5 teams here. What's the first team that you think should be calling the Dallas Cowboys and saying, hey, we want this guy?
In order to be able to get a player like Micah Parsons, there's 2 things you need to be able to offer. The first thing is an exciting young player at a premium position, and the other thing is a load of draft capital. There's no team, I think, that's in a better position to do that than the Chicago Bears. Now, that might be you're not going to see them immediately linked because they're not as exciting as a team like the Bills or whatever. But the Bears' biggest need is at edge rusher, and they've got a player they can offer here. Like, if you're the Chicago Bears, I know that this whole offseason was about building around Caleb Williams and improving the offense. But you've got a spoil of riches at wide receiver. If you call Dallas saying, hey, Rome Odunze was a number 9 pick last year, and he was very, very good. We've got a bunch of draft capital because we've got our quarterback and we want to win now. And you are looking for somebody to elevate that defense to the next level. I mean, Montez Sweat is a fine player. Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett are solid players. But replacing Odi Ingbo with Micah Parsons would transform that team. I think the Cowboys should be willing to listen. You can get a nice young receiver to pair with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, whether or not George Pickens sticks around. You can get a bunch of draft capital from Chicago, a team that has a lot of variance and outcomes. This is my number 1 location if Micah Parsons gets traded.
So I guess the very first thing that we should address here is, do you think it's likely, we're pretending a world again where Micah does get traded. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, is the NFC's on the table for you?
When you are trading a player like Micah Parsons, you have to be willing to get the best return possible. Now, in the division is one thing because you have to play those teams twice a year. It'll be humiliating to say send him to the Commanders. Oh, yeah. So he's going to be linked there, but I don't see that happening. But realistically, if you're the Cowboys, you play the Bears, once every 3 or 4 years? Mm-hmm. Maybe you face them in the playoffs once. But you can't be making decisions around, we don't want to play Micah Parsons once or twice over the next 5 years if that's going to hinder your return. So in division is a no-no. But otherwise, I mean, we see great players get traded within the conference all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Bears...
Like the 49er,
Yeah, no, I think the Bears make a lot of sense, as you were saying before. Montez Sweat is the ringleader of the pass rush. He didn't have quite as good of a year as, remember when he first came over to Chicago a year and a half ago, and I mean, lit the world on fire. So that's a spot where, they got a lot of help earlier in the year from the interior with Javon Dexter before a couple injuries started to limit the effectiveness. But yeah, the Bears are one of those teams where if you give them a couple more scary players here or there, I definitely think that the outlook for them on the season changes. Of course, it usually will come, as it usually does, will come down to quarterback and Caleb being able to pull it together. But it helps a lot when when you don't need to score 25, 30 points a game. And I like that. I think Chicago would
realistically. I mean, DJ Moore and Luther Burden is still one of the better wide receiver duos in the NFL.
So what was your offer? Playing. It was a Dunze and
Rome Odunze and whatever picks you need to make it work.
Rome Odunze,
2 first rounders, a day 2 or a day 3.
Because Micah's 26 years old. So it's going to take any package that we see here. I think it starts with 2 first round picks and then probably some stuff on top of that. Because you're probably getting another, 4 or 5 years of elite Micah Parsons if all goes well?
4 or 5, maybe even more.
Yeah, that's your hope. I mean, yeah, some guys do go into their mid-30s, but at the very least, you're hoping to get to that age 30 season. And the Bears, I'm trying to look here. 1 second. The Bears.
The thing that will be a difference maker, every team in the NFL, I think, right now is willing to offer 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons and give him whatever deal he wants. The difference maker for who do the Cowboys send him to is what quality of young players, young potential stars can we get out of you? And Rome Odunze, I think, is a better piece than most other teams that are competitive that'll be willing to trade for Micah Parsons are willing to offer.
Well, I'm looking right here. You know who the Bears sack leader was last year and what the number was?
Wasn't it 4 or 5 sacks?
It's 5.5 sacks for Montez Sweat. Led the team. And you don't get another that would rank 60th in the NFL. And the next Bear is Dexter on the interior.
2.5?
He had 5. He was 72nd.
Oh wow.
But I mean, it's just then TJ Edwards. So we're moving back to linebackers now.
If you put Micah Parsons up there, he'll get a dozen, and he'll probably increase the numbers by everyone else around him by 3 or 4 too.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of those situations 100% where you slide.
You could legitimately double your number of sacks on defense by adding this one player.
Yes, it's the rising tides lifts all boats. It's because the next guy 3.5 sacks for DeMarcus Walker was the second most from a defensive end. And in today's league, what got the Eagles to the Super Bowl? It was that defensive line dominated the offensive line as well. When you can dominate up front, that's where it starts. So, all right, I like the Bears as a candidate. Who else is on your list?
People are going to think that I'm just saying this team because it's our show, but I think another team that's absolutely going to be ringing the phones is the Detroit Lions. Again, you look at that formula, potentially elite young players combined with draft capital, combined with a need to compete. The Lions are right there. And I know, Aiden Hutchinson with Micah Parsons, it would just be unfair.
That would be...
Aiden Hutchinson was on track for who knows how many sacks. Micah Parsons and him combined, they could both get 20 for all I know. You would run out of opportunities to sack the quarterback before those guys would run out of sacks. But you've got a player I think the Cowboys would be really excited to add in Terry and Arnold. Right. He's a promising young cornerback. Cornerback is probably the biggest position of need on the Cowboys. Again, I think if you're the Lions, you're ready to compete now. I know you've drafted well historically, but you simply do not need first round picks. You've got the cap space to add him this year. You can move money around into future years. And look, at a certain point, if you can throw in another player too, right? You could throw in Jamison Williams if you want. You could throw in Campbell as a linebacker. The Lions have a ton of really strong young pieces. Look, you can shrug and say, do you really want to give up Terry and Arnold and Jack Campbell? What's that going to do?
No. I'm trying to run it through my mind. No, I'm trying to run through my mind here. Because you're throwing around Terry and Arnold was a first round pick for Detroit. Jamison Williams just had 1,000 yards. Jack Campbell's an emerging linebacker. I'm trying to think at what point here, because Micah Parsons and Aiden Hutchinson, I can't even get through that without laughing at how. I mean that would be ridiculous, and I can't fathom the Vikings going in JJ McCarthy in his rookie season, having Detroit come to town, and you have Micah Parsons on one end and Aiden Hutchinson on the other. That is, that's the best pass rushing combo in the history of football. I can't think off the top of my head of it, if Hutchinson returns close to what he was.
That's a lot of first round picks and first round players to give up. At a certain point, I do not care.
No, the Lions right now. A lot of people discuss the Super Bowl window for Detroit, and that window is right now. and it's not going to close for another couple of years. If you have prime Micah Parsons added to that defense, I just can't see. I can't see any team in the NFC being comfortable. The Vikings have Darisaw and O'Neal, who are awesome tackles. It's like, what are you going to do? I mean, you're just going to get blown up. So I see it, but I'm trying to wonder what is the package that works there? Let's say you offer Terry and Arnold. I think if you're just doing one player, you got to have at least 2 first-round picks in there. And if you're Detroit, you do that.
If you're giving up Williams or Campbell, I'd probably move down to 1 first-round pick and throw in a couple day 2 or day 3
Jamison
picks.
Williams, Terry and Arnold in the first.
Scale. Yeah, and at a certain point, there's no doubt that will weaken the Lions' offense a little bit. I mean, Jamison Williams, we've talked about how important he could be for the Lions next year. You've got a new offense coming in. He's your breaking out wide receiver too. But come on. Middle linebackers and wide receiver twos are so much easier to get. Even very good ones are so much easier to get than Micah frickin' Parsons.
Would you trade Arnold, Jamison Williams, and a first for Micah Parsons if you were Detroit?
Without blinking, I would trade that.
Yeah, I think you have to do it. But
missing in terms of teams that have the pieces to put together the most competitive offer, I think the Lions are number 1.
If Terry and Arnold, given what we know about Terry and Arnold right now, like if Terry and Arnold were playing at the level of Cooper DeJean or Quinion Mitchell after his rookie season, then I don't think he could do that. That feels like a little too much, especially given the need, as we've said, for the secondary in Detroit. But based on the year Arnold had, you can pull the trigger there.
It was a very promising year, but he's not elite yet. It's funny, actually. The Lions traded up with the Cowboys to get Terry and Arnold, so maybe the Cowboys don't think very much of him.
And I'm enjoying just going through last season's sack numbers here. The Lions so they had Aiden Hutchinson at 36 in the league. He only played 5 games with 7.5 sacks. Their top sack leader was Zadarius Smith, who remember played a good portion of the year also with the Browns. He had 9, so he was 18th in the league. But Zadarius isn't there anymore. After those 2 dudes, so other than those guys, you have to go down to 118, where you have Aleem McNeil with 3.5 sacks. So that's another. Then you have Davenport back. You DJ Reed. Like the D line is totally different this season because everybody was hurt. But the Lions were 23rd in sacks last season. Like they need a boost, and they will get it with everyone returning from injury. But as far as actual edge rushers go, after Hutchinson, there are a lot of questions. Davenport hasn't been healthy for a number of years now. Josh Pascal is someone that you like, but you want him. I mean, Micah Parsons would be more than a number 2 if you brought him in. So that's another one where that's the scariest to me. Pairing those 2 up. So all right, you have 2 NFC North teams to start here. We said we were going to give 5. Got the Bears, got the Lions. Are you going to continue this theme?
Unfortunately, again, I think it's a weird situation where the teams that need defensive ends seem to sort of all be in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers have to be ringing the phones at this point. Again, they don't have necessarily the elite young players that the Lions and the Bears do, but what they do have are a lot of established players. A desire to win. I really think that Micah Parsons is going to be playing for an NFC North team next year, and the Packers could easily be that team.
I hate that you're listing all the teams that he could play for, and the Vikings.
It just makes sense. It just makes sense. I mean, if you're the Packers, you desperately need established production on this defensive line.
If Micah Parsons
they chose to go into this year saying we're going to count on our guys to take a step forward, I do not feel comfortable with Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary. Now, look, you've got an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. I'm willing to move off Jaden Reed. I'm willing to move off Romeo Dobbs. Like, you've got a chokehold there. You need something to clear up so a guy can start. Move one of those receivers, pick a player on defense, throw in some picks. There's absolutely a trade to be had here.
If Micah Parsons ends up with the Green Bay Packers, Ziggy, after an entire offseason of being like, no Trey Hendrickson, please don't let them get Trey Hendrickson. I don't want to see that happening.
I mean, it'd be like when they brought Reggie White to town. Right?
Oh, God. Yeah, but I mean, Reggie White was, how old was Reggie White when he went to Green Bay? Wasn't he like, he was already in his 30s, I believe, right?
It was, I believe, his 9th season.
Yeah, he was 32. That's not
the point.
No, I know, but I'm saying like
any Packers fan who's watching this knows the difference that trading for an elite edge rusher, or I mean, they signed him in free agency in their case, but being willing to give up a lot for an elite edge rusher can absolutely be worth it. And I mean, he went to Green Bay and transformed that team.
No, this would be the nightmare. Of all the edge rushers they could get, like this would be a disaster, Ziggy. Because you had, even if they got Myles Garrett, because people were talking Myles Garrett, he's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 this year. Like the age is actually,
he'll be 31 next year.
Yes, the age is a factor here too.
Us soon.
If you said to me, Paul, pick one guy in the NFL that you don't want to become a Packer for this defense right here, I would go Micah Parsons. And the fact that this is now, because I'm seeing everyone's tweeting at us saying, oh, he's going to be a Packer. And I know they're just ruffling feathers, but it does make sense. And it really does as a team where, if you're the Packers, if you're Brian Gutekunst right now, you should be on the phone. And I really, really, really doubt again that the Cowboys will move Micah. I don't think they'd want to put him to the Packers because that is a rivalry too. But if the Packers put together the right package, like as far as can it make sense? Yes, and Green Bay should do it because if they got Micah, it changes the entire outlook of the whole defense.
Do you remember last offseason, Micah Parsons asked Jordan Love who the number one player he'd like to come to the organization was? You remember what Jordan Love said?
I remember that interview. Did he say Micah?
Yeah. He said the guy sitting next to me, Micah Parsons, and Micah said, "I'd love to come, but I'm Cowboys for life. So I'm not going to be able to do it."
Oh God. Yeah, Jordan Love should be on the phone right now with every Packer saying like let's get this done. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, at a certain point, like I'm sure that's where Micah Parsons would like to go. And at a certain point, if the Cowboys are willing to move him, he has a little bit of leverage because he needs to sign a deal. But at a certain point, I mean, it would just be unfair if the Green Bay Packers get to add this guy.
What that would really give them, and the Packers are another team where I'm enjoying looking at the sack leaders from last season. Rashawn Gary had 7.5 sacks. After that, there was no one on the team with more than 5. And just for comparison, because I'm reading out a lot of these numbers here, like the Vikings had 3 guys all with over 7 sacks. And 2 of them had, I mean, the Vikings are, I guess, maybe an outlier example here because of Grenard and Van Ginkel. But
they're who the other NFC Norths are measuring themselves up against on the D line.
Yeah, like the Giants had Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns both had over 8.5 sacks. Like the comparisons we're making here are the NFC North teams, other than one dude usually, and sometimes not even, we're talking like 3.5 sacks is your number 2 dude. And that's just not, I mean, like you need more from that position. So, man, if the Packers got Micah to have the 3 levels where you could have Micah Parsons, Edgerrin Cooper, and then Xavier McKinney, other guys do need to step up, and you're going to need Carrington Valentine and Nate Hobbs. You'll need someone else on the D line, play well. But to start at that level or at that base for the 3 levels of your defense, that is the perfect. Everybody else will play a lot better. And hey, what will make Nate Hobbs and Carrington Valentine look better? If Micah Parsons is getting to the quarterback in 2 seconds, like that, that's the best cure for a cornerback problem or a potential cornerback problem. This would be a nightmare. What was the trade that you said again? I'm sorry if you had already said that.
If I'm the Packers, I'm calling my first offer is going to be either Romeo Doubs or Jaden Reed. One of those guys on your defense, whether they want Lucas Van Ness or Rashawn Gary, a first round pick and a couple other picks.
So just kind of putting this together in my head as we're talking right now, of the offers we said, we're just throwing things around. This is off of very little, we haven't sat down, crunched numbers or anything, but it's Romeo Doubs and 2 firsts, right? We said that was one with Chicago. We said Jamison Williams, Terry and Arnold.
Dunze, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, what did I say?
Romeo Doubs.
Sorry. Rome Dunze and 2 firsts for Chicago.
Romeo Doubs and 2 first-round picks. I'm not even blinking.
Yeah.
I'm running my spam number checker to make sure I'm really talking to Stephen Jones, and then I'm smashing the deal. Like, if you remember in the NBA when like the Pelicans were making that trade, and the GM for the Hawks is like, hold on, are you really offering me this?
Yeah.
Like, is this a prank? Am I being pranked by the New Orleans front office?
The Joe Dumars trade. Yeah. Jameson Williams, Terrion Arnold, and a first. And now we've gotten to Jaden Reed. Well, I think they try to avoid Reed in that situation.
I don't care.
Well, all right. Let's say the Cowboys are like, we want Reed.
Matthew Golden looks great. Like, at a certain point, the difference between Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs cannot be the whole.
Okay, let's pretend it's Reed. Let's make it a little worse for Green Bay. Jaden Reed, Van Ness, a first,
and like a pair of seconds.
Yeah, you need something. You need more there.
No, like it can be 2 firsts and a few picks. It can be 1 first and a lot of day 2 and day 3s.
Because I'm trying to think if it got to a bidding war, and if he had to go to the NFC North, I hope it would turn into a bidding war. I'm trying to imagine if I'm the Cowboys and the Lions made that offer. I'm like, that's a pretty strong offer. Arnold, Williams, and a first, plus maybe some other picks. Like I would value that way more than Reed, Van Ness, and a first.
The other thing the Packers could potentially do is the Cowboys have been rebuilding their offensive line this offseason. They've used a couple early picks on offensive linemen up until this point. Jordan Morgan, who I think is a very good player, is sort of competing with Rasheed Walker for that job. And we've talked multiple times this offseason about how next year the Packers are going to have to let either Rasheed Walker go or find a home for Belton or Morgan. Like, there's another logjam there, just like receiver.
Yeah.
The Packers are in an unusual situation. I don't think they have quite the quality of players to trade compared to Chicago or particularly Detroit, but they're much more incentivized to move off of them.
Well, and this is also, so actually to go off that, and now, as you'll see now, we're kind
even
of
like Elton Jenkins is a guy who they should be willing to move.
Well, that's where if you're Chicago, though, like you're going to want, like Jameson Williams has been the most valuable name we've thrown out so far, because you're going to want some guys, it's like fantasy football.
I'm taking Rome Odunze over Jameson Williams all day.
Okay, sure. Let's say Rome's the most valuable, but like it's like fantasy football, right? In your mind, when you're asking for a stud player, you can't just come to the guy and be like, "Hey, we're going to throw a bunch of like, mediocre dudes over to you." Now that's where I think like the Packers will probably need to give a little bit more. Not saying that Lucas Van Ness or Jane Reed can't be very, very good. But the other guys we've thrown out are a little bit more established at this point, or have a little bit higher ceiling, I would say.
Well, this thing, it's harder. Like, you're correct that those other teams have better players. But the other thing is they'll have to do much harder math about whether to get rid of some of those guys. Mm-hmm. The Packers can come out swinging with a very aggressive offer right away. Whereas those other teams, maybe they're willing to give them up. But if you're Chicago, I mean, do you really want to give up the number 9 pick in the draft last year? I mean, for Micah Parsons, you might get there, but you're going to place a pretty high value on that with Ben Johnson coming in. If you're the Lions, do you want to give up Terry and Arnold?
Well,
Whereas I think the Packers have so many quality players, right? You're right that they're not studs, but they can upgrade the Cowboys at a lot of positions.
Well, what if Dallas came and said, we want Matthew Golden as the receiver?
Okay.
So Golden, Van Ness, few picks.
It sucks. It's terrible. Packers Nation will be crying that they finally took a skill position player in the first round and then traded him away immediately. Come on.
Yeah, for Micah.
It's Micah Parsons.
So this is the kind of sick thing about the Packers being able to pull off this trade is all the names that we've thrown around so far. An advantage Green Bay has is the depth. And it's something that we've said is sort of been a problem for them, is that they have a lot of really good players, but not a lot of great players at these positions. If you were to make a trade like this and give a bunch of good players to Dallas plus a bunch of picks, you're not really going to be impacted the way Detroit would if they trade Jameson Williams. There's a hole at receiver. If they traded Arnold, there's a hole at cornerback. The Packers are so deep everywhere that if you traded Jordan Morgan, it's like you just said, they have guys coming in. If you trade them Lucas Van Ness, that's fine. 1, you're getting Micah, but 2, you also have a bunch of other dudes there that you're hoping can take a jump. If you trade Who's the other guy we were throwing around earlier? If you trade one of the receivers, you have 4 or 5 of them once Watson comes back. So that's where Green Bay, even if you make that trade, you're fine if you're a Packer fan, because you're not going to come out of it being like, oh, now that's a problem. You just got really, really dominant at one position, and you trade a bunch of guys who were mediocre contributors. And that is where, if you're the Cowboys now, you're probably looking at any Packer trade and saying, okay, well, maybe we'll go somewhere else. But at some point, if you're offering enough value in the draft plus quality players, yeah, it's going to get some attention. So I would certainly be trying, if I were Gutekunst, I'd be, spinning the wheels in my head trying to figure out, all right, what could we entice Dallas with here? And it's certainly possible.
Yeah, and the thing is, I know it's not a very typical Packers move to make a big splash trade and bring someone in, but this organization has shown over its history is that for a really special player, they'll do it. They stay out of the negotiations for players like Milton Williams, who aren't very special and that some team's going to overpay for. But when they really see their opportunity, and they've gotten more aggressive about this. Recently it was Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. Earlier we talked about Reggie White. I know that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But when they see an opportunity for a truly special player, and Micah Parsons is a surefire Hall of Famer. He is, with respect to his age and availability, the most special player to come on the trade market for some time. I think they will be willing to do a lot to try and get him. Whether it will be what it takes is a different question, because there's always a team that can pay more. But Green Bay, I think, is a special situation in that Micah clearly wants to go there. He's indicated it before. They've got a lot of things they can do to make Dallas better right now, because Dallas is still trying to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But they've a lot of holes on that roster, on the offensive line, in their secondary, at receiver. There's a lot that you can do here.
One of the Packers receivers would fit in really nicely there, behind CD, behind Pickens. And yeah, now you get that third guy for this season, because we'll see what happens with Pickens going forward. But no, there's definitely, those Packer dudes could certainly help the Cowboys, who have a lot of stars, but maybe need to build out their depth a little bit more. So that could be a helpful trade. All right, we're going to go through 2 more teams here. Are we staying in the NFC?
We are not staying in the NFC.
All right, let's get on the road.
We're doing a little bit of traveling. Of course, there's a lot of teams in the AFC that I think would be willing to trade for Micah Parsons. This is one that feels a little bit out of left field, but I think actually this is a rare situation where they can solve both each other's problems. The Cincinnati Bengals. Now, you might be saying, what are you talking about? The Cincinnati Bengals have an edge rusher at home, and they're not willing to sign him. Well, just like the classic meme where it's like we have McDonald's at home and your mom gives you a crummy meatloaf. Trey Hendrickson is not Micah Parsons. The reason the Bengals have gotten into the struggle of Hendrickson is that he's older and they feel like they already have him under contract. The reason Micah Parsons has gotten this struggle of Dallas is not because Dallas isn't willing to pay him money, but because there's a personal grievance on both sides. The Bengals have changed how they operate a little bit. We saw of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They're willing to pay guys top dollar if they're young, productive, and willing to stick around in town for a little while. The Trey Hendrickson for Micah Parsons swap, obviously Cincinnati has to add draft capital to that, at least a first round pick, possibly more. But this is the rare trade where the Cowboys don't get much worse this season. They get future draft capital. They get to solve the headache they have with Micah Parsons and just start all over again.
Yeah, the way that I would envision it going is Micah would get over to Cincinnati and be like, all right, let's work on a contract that they'd be like, oh, let's figure it out later. They're kind of similar to the Cowboys in their kicking contracts down the road. Yes, they do give them, but obviously the Jamar Chase one cost them a lot of money. T. Higgins cost them a lot of money. But at least Mike Brown is not going to come out there and start saying, oh, I don't know about Micah Parsons. He seems to get hurt a lot. I don't know if we should sign him. He's kind of a baby. Well, he might say
Mike Brown will just sit back and let the GM make it happen.
I don't know. Mike Brown might come out and say, as long as Micah stays out of prison, we'll give him the contract with the Shamar Stewart situation hasn't gone particularly well. The Bengals...
The Shamar Stewart situation was also a lot crazier.
Yes. So
and they got it done at the end of the day.
Yeah. This one feels a lot more fantasy to me. But yes, if you actually do think about it, it makes sense is exactly the way you put it, with both teams exchanging elite pass rushers. One of them's a little bit younger, so you compensate with the extra draft picks. That all makes sense, and it's a fun one to think about. It's just the feasibility of it doesn't quite seem there. I think obviously the Bengals, I think, would be pumped about it, but if you were the Cowboys, would you want that? I'm trying.
Here's why you would do this if you're the Cowboys. If the situation with Parsons is unsalvageable, every trade that we've mentioned up until this point involves them acquiring promising young players. But the Cowboys are trying to compete right now. Trey Hendrickson, he's the same position. He's just as productive. This is your only opportunity, if you're Dallas, to trade Micah Parsons, get some real value back, and not be substantially worse this year or even next.
So yeah, he's had 17 and a half sacks past 2 years. Let's say you get another 2 firsts. Would you do, if you were the Bengals, Hendrickson and 2 firsts?
2 firsts is a lot, but 1 first and a day 2, I think, is a lot more reasonable.
Hendrickson, a first and a second. If I'm Dallas, I'd want a first and a second.
You can want a lot, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's no other team that's willing to trade an elite edge rusher right now except potentially Cincinnati.
Micah's 4 or 5 years younger.
Micah Parsons is 26. Trey Hendrickson is 30. Going to turn 31. It's like 4.5, I think.
4.5 years. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to stack it up against these other deals here. And if you were able to get a high day 2 pick, or like if you got a second, I think that would probably be the one I'd go with. Hendrickson, a first and a second. But if it's a third, I think I'm still leaning towards that. Obviously, it all comes down to how much draft capital you're willing to trade. Because I think but Hendrickson's by far the best player of all the dudes we've said.
Yeah, again, I think it's just an unusual situation where I think this is less likely to happen. You're right. But logically, it makes a lot of sense if these 2 situations are unsalvageable for both organizations to swap problems.
The thought of having 2 stubborn franchises just flip-flop the disgruntled player is really funny to me. Like
it actually does make sense.
It does to a degree, yes. To a degree, it makes sense, but it's also like, I mean, it would just be comical. Like it makes sense, but it's just so much funnier than it is realistic. I would say. Okay, who's the 5th team?
The last team we're going to look at, we had a little tour of the AFC, but at the end of the day, we were talking about this when we were talking about Terry McLaurin potentially getting traded. You and me, it feels like every single team that sort of makes sense for him is in the AFC. Similarly, I think for Micah Parsons, basically every team that makes sense for him is in the NFC. So we'll go back there. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I like that one.
Now, if you're Tampa Bay, here's what you're sitting back and saying. We won a Super Bowl combining an affordable quarterback who played lights out with an elite defense. Now, Baker Mayfield is not Tom Brady. But last year, he did a pretty darn good Tom Brady impression with 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
It looked pretty good. The thing they were missing was that punch on defense. Now, if you're the Buccaneers, I think your window is now. Baker Mayfield's under contract. Guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are aging. Players, even like Tristan Wirfs and Anton Winfield, great players, aren't exactly getting younger.
Mm-hmm.
Now would be a great time to add a stud like Micah Parsons to really push that defense back to the level it was before. Because right now, the defense is a lot more name brand guys like Lavonte David, who haven't played as well over the past few years.
Well, Lavonte David is also, 35 years old?
Yeah, I mean, he's the extreme guy there. But certainly of the Buccaneers, they could use a star.
Oh, 100%. And they're hoping that Hassan Reddick can come in and return to form. Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, the Hassan Reddick. Okay, I wasn't seeing him for a second on the depth chart. Like I know he's.
Yeah, but it's because they added him. But realistically, I mean, any team that trades for Micah Parsons is getting a massive upgrade. But like realistically, on the inside, you've got Kancey and Vita Vea. Who do you have as an edge rusher you're excited about?
No, there's not really anyone, and that's the big problem, and that's why they are placing.
Is it going to be Yaya Diaby?
No, they're placing a lot of faith in Reddick returning to form after, last season. What Reddick's numbers last year? Did he even play?
He had 1 sack.
Yeah, I know he had 1 sack. I don't know how many games he played in, but that is the biggest roster concern for the Buccaneers, and they didn't draft an edge rusher until day 3 in the draft this year. So it wasn't ignored in bringing in Reddick, but it definitely wasn't addressed, with as much urgency as maybe it should be. And we've discussed at length now what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to do to become real contenders this season, and it's get the defense to a spot. So I think Micah Parsons would be a dream scenario for them. There were injuries last year, but the pass game allowed 341 yards per game. I was the 4th worst in the league. And if you ask any Buck fan what one of the biggest problems with that is that they couldn't get after the quarterback. So I think, honestly, of all these teams that we've brought up today, the Packers would get elite production from Micah Parsons, and it would be nice to have a star there. The Lions, it would be unfathomable having Aiden Hutchinson and Micah on the same side. The Bears, kind of the same deal with Sweat, not to the same degree, but of all these teams,
looking to add a second great edge rusher.
Of all these teams, and the Bengals, we talked about a switch with Hendrickson. Of all of them, the team that would get the biggest boost in terms they're stepping up a level might actually be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who actually needs a pass rusher the most is probably Tampa. So I think that would be a team, and that feels like one that would be a little bit more. Okay, the Cowboys might trade to the Bucs. They just feel, in my mind, I think of the Packers, I think of the Lions, and Dallas might be a little more hesitant. Tampa Bay it's Tampa. Let's give it to them. And then next thing you know, Baker's thrown for 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns again, and they got Micah Parsons on defense with Antoine Winfield Jr. And the Bucs are very scary. The Bucs are quietly a very scary team. And Micah,
that would move the Bucs from I'm unsure about whether they'd win the division to overwhelming favorites in my mind.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I know you're picking Atlanta as of our last season prediction.
Not if they add Micah Parsons.
No, I don't think Atlanta's good enough.
And I think this deal, if you're the Buccaneers, you've got the player I think you're dangling is Emeka Egbuka. There's no question about it. He went number 19 in this year's draft. He was a very, very strong wide receiver prospect. And even though he's really stood out in Buccaneers training camp and looked very good, you're okay with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin when he gets healthy. You can live with that receiving duo if you're the Buccaneers. I know this is a player you don't really want to give up, but throw in Bucky Irving. He's an exciting young running back going to a team that desperately needs a running back and also would love to have a guy like Bucky Irving. You can just see Jerry Jones saying, Bucky Irving. I mean, he's the next Ezekiel Elliott for us. We'll run him to the ground and then sign to a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you add those two guys to the Cowboys offense there, that's Lamb, Pickens, Egbuka, and Bucky Irving. That's a pretty electrifying set of skill position players with Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, and again, if I'm the Buccaneers, I'm not happy about trotting out Rachaad White, Sean Tucker, and Trey Palmer to sort of move into those starting positions. But I'm much happier about that than I am about Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick.
They're probably still also with that trade that you're probably still looking at some more draft capital going over to Dallas too.
Oh, no question. Yeah. This is still going to require a first round pick, but you're getting the thing they can offer that these other teams can't. Dallas has historically been a team that's really valued these young running backs. And we've seen all the issues they've had with Blue. I mean, I don't know if you've heard what people have been saying about him in Dallas, but it's been rough. Oh, yeah, he's been called a borderline lazy. They're saying he's not showing up and not doing his job. Jaden Blue has not had a great start in Dallas. Now, things gotten a little bit better over the past few days. But Bucky Irving, he's proven that he can be. He put up 1,100 yards last season despite not even starting with the job.
Bucky Irving
starting job really until week 8 or 9.
Yeah, he was fantastic last season. The rookie year. He goes 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, and receiving threat too. Yeah, he's
Yeah, the first time he got over 15 carries was December, and he finished a season of 1,100 yards. That's very good.
So that's what we have right now.
But it's Micah Parsons. For
Micah Parsons, the 5 teams we've thrown out: Packers, Lions, Bears, Bucks, and Bengals. I mean, we could keep going.
Now, Paul, I've got a question for you to wrap up the show.
Yeah.
We've got those 5 teams. I want you to rank them 1 to 5. Where would you least like to see Micah Parsons go?
Oh,
start at 5, work your way up. We all know. Actually, start at 1. We all know what number 1 is.
Yeah, it can't be the Packers. One would be the Packers. 2 would be the Lions.
Doesn't it just feel like that could happen? Micah Parsons to Green Bay. You're seeing it announced. We're sending over. It's the steal of the century.
I cannot articulate how frustrated I'd be. I'd probably go for a long walk and listen to some music.
I'm not sure we could do an emergency podcast. You might be too upset.
It would probably echo the sentiments of me post like Rams loss, the first one. I love how it could be the first one last year. Like it would probably be like a really, really upsetting regular season loss. And then when he had like 4 sacks against us, then it would be like the postseason loss where I'm like, all right, this just sucks. Yeah, Packers, Lions, Bears.
I might cry if Micah Parsons goes to the Packers.
Bucks, Bengals, 4-5. Yeah, you'd cry. But yeah, I mean, hey, it's
truly.
Now let's just imagine though, the Vikings package something and throw it over. I mean, I love Van Gink, but if you send Van Gink,
Addison.
I mean, that's the name that comes up, but I wouldn't want to do that.
I don't care. No, this is the thing about Micah Parsons that I think you sort of can't forget. There are 2 names on this roster that to me are genuinely untouchable if Micah Parsons is available, and that's Justin Jefferson and JJ McCarthy. That's it. Every single other player you can talk me into, and Darisaw. Let's make it 3. I don't want Darisaw gone. Other than that, every single player you could convince me in one way or another to give up for Micah Parsons.
They might want Grenard and Addison.
Done. Boom.
Yeah, you probably. Yeah,
if we're not giving up a first-round pick with that, because those are 2 strong players.
Those are 2 really good players.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
This is the thing. Any team can come up with a trade like this. So I guess we'll find out. Time will tell. Final prediction. I'm going to guess with a lot of certainty that he stays with the Cowboys.
That's boring. And also, I mean this sincerely. I think that this is a different level of an NFL player requesting a trade. I think Jerry's in his feelings. I think Mike is in his feelings. That's going to stop both of them from doing the thing that makes sense.
Don't say
I think he's going to Detroit.
That would suck. That would just be. I mean, I like that first Packer-Lion game. Watching Micah and Hutchinson would be. Oh my gosh. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Enjoy your Friday afternoon, everyone. Have a nice weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday. Probably talking about Micah Parsons as a Detroit Lion or Green Bay Packer or something. So we'll see you soon.